Hey, everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner, and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity?
My secret identity? Yeah, I'm I'm J.S. Gilbert.
See, when you said it that way, I literally had to like pinch my fingers together and make sure the pinky was lifted.
Okay, there you go. And actually, that was my intent.
Just had to pick up my water, do the pinky. That's going to be the thing for this entire interview. I expect all the listeners to do that as well.
All right then. Well, we could be a little upper crusty if you'd like.
Ah. But instead of being too polite, I was wondering if we could go on a time traveling adventure back in time, and maybe in a DeLorean, maybe in a photo booth, whatever it is that you like to travel in, and figure out what initially sparked your interest in acting.
Wow. Well, I think it probably started just when I was a kid, and where I grew up, you were either a fighter or you were a funny person. And I didn't really want to do much fighting, so I kind of was like a funny guy. And I found I had what would you say, ability to do mimicking or impersonations, things of that nature. So it kind of helped make me maybe not popular, but at least to the point where I didn't get picked on a whole lot and abused and didn't get into fights because I could usually kind of joke my way out of those scenarios and situations. And then it just became part of my natural charm.
Well, that's always a good thing.
Yes.
Well, how did you turn it, professional? I mean, you don't just joke around with your buddies at school and, go out into the real world and be like, I'm funny, hire me.
Um, no, actually, well, I mean, it's funny because I had so many opportunities actually to really get into acting or voiceover or whatever, and didn't pursue it. I actually have a degree in business, and I was working in the business world. I worked also as a concert producer and did a bunch of those kinds of things, but I fell in with the advertising world, marketing, advertising, and guys that were working for ad agencies. I've been writing since I was and actually had my first article published when I was about 15. So I was there in the advertising world, and I was tasked with having to go out every week and do these recordings for one of the local concert promoters for their concert hotline. It was always the same sort of formula, get your tickets for the blah 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 concert this week at the Arco Arena at the Arco box office, or and I would go to a radio station usually, and the DJ would do the voiceover. And then one day I was at a radio station, and the DJ was either hungover or I don't know what. I honestly can't remember. And so I was going to see about hiring somebody else, calling somebody else, and the engineer said, "You have a nice voice. Why don't you try it?" So I did the recording. I went back sheepishly to the people I was working with, and they said, "This is great. You keep doing it." Of course, I didn't realize at the time their major reason why they wanted me to continue doing it was because they were saving the $50 on the talent fee. But after several months, I had somebody actually hunt me down online and ask me to do a for real job. And it was pretty funny. I'd been in business a good chunk of my life. I generally am somebody who knows business comportment, as they say. But that day that I went to that studio and I was not the director or the writer or what have you, but I was the talent, boy, I must have been something. I think I did like 100 impersonations for this guy. And at one point, I pretty much followed him into the men's room. It was pretty funny. So, but we got through it, and they were happy with the work, and it somewhere in the back of my mind kind of stuck that this was something I really like doing. And I just was very lucky that San Francisco had one opportunity after another opportunity after another opportunity open for me to be able to pursue this part of my creative life, to do voiceovers. We became San Francisco in the early '80s became kind of a mecca for what they called boutique ad agencies, and they fly people down here and put them up in wine country or in beds and baths, bed and breakfasts, and so there was a lot of interest in the people around here that could do voiceover for commercials. Then later on, of course, we had the video games industry had its birth here, and that was pretty amazing. And we had the .com boom and all that, and so I was very lucky that I was in the kind of the right place at the right time for a lot of this to happen. Um, and so that's pretty much my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, we would be a little bit disappointed if it changed because I think it's really interesting that you had your hand in a lot of pies. Let's just say that. And you went with voiceover because a business can be very lucrative, but instead you went with voiceover and that must mean you really love it.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not. I had actually had a Buddhist monk tell me many years ago. There's nothing inherently spiritual about poverty. And one thing you will find if you follow me online, I generally tell people, this is a rough business. And two things. One, it's not just enough to be able to love it, but you also have to really have some way of putting food on your table and paying your bills and things. I feel sorry because I know that the VO classes these days are filled with people who are on unemployment, and I just don't know what's going to happen to those folks. It's I actually care more for people than I really do for just about anything else. And if you can come to voiceover and it can be, your dream come true, great. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are running away from a nightmare and think that maybe voiceover is some way that they're going to make big bucks or get famous or who knows what. I was very lucky because when I decided to make the decision to get into voiceover, it was something I could do gradually. I could keep high paying work, and I had a ton of money stashed away to live off of. So, everything was, the seeds were planted and they were watered and they were fertilized. So I had everything going for me.
Well, it also helped too with the business aspect because it's funny. I have a lot of people who come onto the show who don't do a lot of interviews or don't like to market themselves, but you must really know how important that is for an actor.
Well, sure. And, there's a lot of people in our industry who discovered this. You know, a lot of people who have been out there have been making tons of money at voiceover or even just any kind of creative pursuit. We don't even have to say voiceover. And the internet has kind of changed the game to a very large extent. Um, I started doing voices for games back in the mid 80s to late 80s. And if you look online, you'll see that I don't have any credits until like 93 or 94. Nobody cared. They didn't really care who the voice talent was on games. In fact, most people didn't even know what games were. And even then, you can look now and you can see there's a lot of stuff that I've done that they don't even credit the actors for online. So if you're not going to get credited for this stuff, how else would the people, the fans of League of Legends, know that I did voices for the game? Unless I said, "Hi, I did voices for the game," because there's nobody else that's going to tell them.
No, I completely understand. I mean, nowadays you have fans who are so enthralled with what voice actor is in the game that they will literally buy a product if their favorite voice actor is in it. So definitely voice acting has kind of gone leaps and bounds.
What I find really cool, I got to do a character 12 years ago named Sweet Tooth for a game called Twisted Metal Black. And I would say probably there hasn't been a month that's gone by where I haven't gotten some sort of communication from somebody, a fan of that game. And then I got contacted a couple of years ago by its creator, David Jaffe, and said, "Hey, we're going to do a sequel. Do you want to do the Sweet Tooth voice again?" And of course I do. And now, there's people kind of rallying online about the whole Sweet Tooth character and my work on doing the character, which is really cool. It didn't exist 12 years ago. But even more so, there's a movie being written right now called Twisted Metal, and there's already people online that are saying, like, you better get J.S. Gilbert to do the Sweet Tooth voice, or we're not going to go see the movie. So I think that's pretty cool.
Well, I can understand that from a fan's perspective because one of the first games that I ever played with my older brother, he's 11 years older than me, so you can guess there wasn't a lot of things we bonded over, but it was Twisted Metal, and he would always drive circles around my butt. But that's something that's iconic for the games. You help bring the character to life with your voice.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, without like I can understand as a fan, like without that, that doesn't make the whole package complete. It's different. It doesn't feel right, you know?
Yeah, but it's a lot of things. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if you don't have a really good game engine, if you don't have really good characters, if you don't have really good writing, there is a certain expectation on the part of the gamer when he's playing these things, and especially with sequels, where you've got a fan base, and you need to please that fan base and attract new people to the game. So the voice that I bring is certainly a part of it. I don't know how huge a part it is. I know that there's games that I've done the voice for where after about 5 times playing it, the gamer turns the sound off because it just drives them crazy. In fact, there was a list one time online that was pretty funny. It was the best 50 voiceover jobs in games and the worst 50 voiceover jobs in games. And I was on each list like 3 or 4 times.
Wow, that's you must have had to think back and be like, was it really that bad or was it really that good?
Well, in the final analysis, and when I said earlier about being a voiceover artiste, I'm not. I'm a voiceover actor, and voiceover actors work with directors, work with writers. So again, I'm really just as good as the director, as the producer, as the game itself. Um, and you could have an idea that might be wildly, incredibly great in your head for how you want to play a character, and if the director doesn't see that or have that same vision and directs you in a different area, then the final product is going to be considerably different than what you had to think of. And guess what wins? I mean, you're the actor and you think it should be done way, and the producer or the director thinks it should be done another way. The actor generally is not going to get their way. Um, and I'll be honest with you, in the new Twisted Metal, I quite frankly think that the work that I did as the voice of Sweet Tooth in the Twisted Metal Black is better.
Really? You won't have
Yeah.
a lot of voiceover artists or actors who will actually, say that, who are brave enough to say that.
Well, look, it David's a businessman, and I'm not saying I think they did a bad job or whatever, but they had a vision, they had a direction, and they pulled me in that direction. They prodded me, they pushed me. That's their job. They're the producers, they're the directors, and I'm supposed to basically take their vision and bring it to life. And all I can say is, from my standpoint of playing both the new game and playing the old game, if I just think about who the character is, the cut scenes predominantly where I do most of the acting, that kind of thing, I personally kind of like Twisted Metal Black. Now, I don't know how the gamers feel about it. I've had people say they love the new game and they love the gameplay. Some people say they don't like the fact that the controls act differently and so on and so forth. Whatever, you're always going to have that. If the game's a success, or the client is happy with the work that I've done, ultimately I'm happy. So that's what we've got going. But from a personal standpoint, I liked what I did before better. But what does that mean? It doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Well, here's my question. Do you have any positive aspects, anything that you really like about let's call it the new iteration of Sweet Tooth?
Well, I think it's pretty kind of neat that um, he's really got a chance now to play out so much of the dark side. And it's also something that I tell a lot of people when they want to get into doing character work. there's no middle ground when you're acting. When you're acting and you're violent, you're tearing up the place. And when you're happy, you are just happy. And so if you're doing a nice read, if well, that was nice, then you're really not doing your job. Now, in the original game, the Twisted Metal Black, he was more psychotic. He was crazy. There's a lot of allusions to being in the asylum and so on and so forth. And so I played him like that, just a BB in a tin can, very unpredictable. In the new game, he's menacing. He's terrorizing. He is about as evil can get. And that is, what runs completely through him. So to be able to actually deliver a performance throughout the whole game where your intent is almost always the same, where your character emotion base is very similar, and yet to give it nuances, to give it texture, to give it all that kind of stuff, that takes a lot of work. So from that standpoint, it was probably harder to do the voice in the newer game than it was originally, because originally there were just so many different directions he could go in.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, one thing I think the fans really care about, and I don't know how much you can say about it, but will he have that same, that same kind of personality and texture in the more recent game he's going to be in, PlayStation All Stars?
Um, well, let's see. I really enjoyed the work that I did in PlayStation All Stars. The sessions that I had there, I, I I don't know if I felt like we really clicked or if it was just because I was hot off the heels of doing the character again after 12 years, because it did take a while doing the Twisted Metal for PS3. It took a while for me to get into the character again. It had been 12 years, and then the battle game, that was done a few months later after wrapping the PS3 Twisted Metal. So that might have had something to do with it, that I was already kind of in character and familiar with it. But I kind of like him, and one of the things I think that people are going to like in that game is he besides just being purely evil, he does have a little sense of humor. He is a bit cynical, and so I think that some people are going to really like that aspect of the character. And you know what? And quite frankly, in this game, it fits a lot better. It fits a lot better than it would have in Twisted Metal for PS3. So that's about all I think I can really say about it without getting into too much trouble.
You gonna get in trouble over that. I know a lot of people are really excited. What do you think of the idea of that game?
Um, I think it's really cool. I'm sort of surprised that it hadn't happened earlier. Nintendo's had success with this kind of format for so many years, and it just seemed to me like there's been so many games that have worked well that that pulling the character out of the history books, if you will, um, you know, and pitting them against each other probably would have been a lot of fun. But I love this concept. I think it works great, and I'm hoping that what's going to happen is that fans of all the different characters and all the different games that come together in this particular game are going to look at it for what it is and what it isn't, because it isn't Twisted Metal and it isn't God of War and it isn't a lot of other things, but what it is really a great game by itself, and it has very big and memorable and cool characters. So hopefully that'll be enough.
Well, what I'm really excited about it personally is because I'm a big Sony fangirl, and I know a lot of people who haven't tried some of these games. Like I know people who haven't tried Twisted Metal or anything like that, and it's like this will sell them on it. Maybe they like Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank or something, and some of the levels are in there, so they'll play it and they'll be like, "Wow, who is Sweet Tooth?" or "Wow, who is Kratos?" Or so on and so forth. And that'll be something really nice to see as a fan, to get other fans into older games.
Yeah, I love the folks over at Sony too. I've done a lot of Sony games over the years, and some of them have done really well, and some haven't. I mean, I did a game for them. It was years ago called what was it called? Anti-grav, iToy anti-grav. This was the coolest thing. You know how everybody's doing games now without controllers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it. So this game came with like a little camera that went on top of your TV, and you rode a skateboard in 3D space, and you controlled it basically through your body movements. There was no controller, no hand controller, and it was such a cool game. Anti-grav. I don't know like why that didn't take off, but
It was with the iToy too, which is still used
yeah,
today.
yeah, the iToy exactly. That's it.
It's kind of funny that even though that technology is still used today, I have one hooked up to my PlayStation 3. A game like that wouldn't catch on. Maybe it just wasn't the time for it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's but then I've done other. I think Siphon Filter was another game that was Sony that was really cool. A few of those. Extermination was a game that I liked. Um,
That is sitting in
what's
my backlog. I haven't touched that one yet. It's still in like the plastic wrap. I just heard it had some horror elements to it, and I really love horror games.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Siphon Filter is the one where I do the character Uri Grigorov, which there are some fans who like the character that I've come up with. He is evil Russian guy, which is basically just my homage to Boris Badenov from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Well, that's kind of interesting that you remember some of these older games. You know, as I said, a lot of gamers nowadays, there's so many games that they never gotten a chance to try. So I'm hoping PlayStation All Stars really gets people to go back and play those
Yeah,
old games.
yeah, I mention those because I think there are characters from there that would have done well in a lot of those other games that could have done well in a battle royale type of thing, or even that iToy just was so cool. And a game like Anti Grav, I just with so many people today that are into snowboarding and boogie boarding and skateboarding and stuff. I don't know why a game like that hasn't made a comeback, or they've tried to do something similar to it in a newer vein. But anyway, and then I get to a lot of the games that I do nowadays. I really like as well. Although I have to say, for whatever reason, they tend to be what I guess most people would call casual games. I do a lot of handheld games too. If you've ever played Spider-Man on the iPhone, I'm all of the bad guys.
Well, it's funny. I don't think necessarily a game on iPhone or iPad is necessarily casual, but at the same time, I get made fun of on staff a lot for playing quote unquote casual games. Like I'll play Cooking Mama just because it's something to do while I'm doing something else. I don't really need to pay attention to it, so I get made fun of for that.
Yeah, so I've done again. I'm not credited for it, but if you play any of the Zynga games, I've probably done voices on about 5 or 6 different games that have the word farm in the title, um, as well as Bingo and a few others. Sam and Max from Telltale Games, and also what's the other one that they did that was really cool? Bone from Telltale Games. I didn't get to do anything on Tintin. I wish I did. But they're really good at doing those casual games and really putting out some great products. So Play First is another. I do a lot of stuff for them as well.
Well, I have to say, I haven't played a lot of Telltale games, but I've played Back to the Future, and I didn't really see that one as a casual game. And I've heard Sam and Max is really good, and people are going to get on my case. I know the listeners are going to get on my case for not playing it, but I have it on PSN, so leave me
Oh
alone.
yeah, it's just fun. It's just and that's the thing I think that's great now with so many different genres of games that there's stuff that's really really I mean gritty and dirty and all. Um, I got to be finally got to be on Halo as one of those 8 foot tall bugs, which was pretty cool. On Dead Space 2, which is an incredible game. Um, and there's a heck of a lot of games I wish I was in. I wish I was in Left 4 Dead. Oh my God, I love that game. Left 4 Dead 2. Oh. Um, and then if you play games online, if anybody's gotten any of the higher levels in Lotro, Lord of the Rings Online, you've heard me.
Well, I know a lot of the games that people are playing online is definitely League of Legends. I can't go anywhere on like our forums or IRC, which is our live chat. I can't go anywhere without somebody talking about it. People really love that game.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I've been lucky enough. I don't know exactly how many characters I've done for it. I'm guessing it's about 7 or 8. It might be more, because sometimes when we go into sessions, they don't even tell us what game we're doing, or they may have a code name for it, or you just don't know. But but it seems like pretty much, I would say probably half or three-quarters of the people who have done voices on that game are friends of mine. Um, and then you were mentioning Eric Bra earlier. He did voices on that. Adam Harrington. Who else? I mean, just a lot of people. A lot of us have the same agents, so it's pretty cool. I got to do a very long session a couple of weeks ago as Cho'Gath.
Yes, I was told it's for the Battlecast Cho'Gath skin.
Yes, so and I don't think it's going to disappoint. I could just tell you they made me do 30 takes of the num 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 num.
Yeah, that must make you feel silly sometimes in the booth when you have to do random noises like that.
Not really. It's just God. I don't know how to tell how to say it. It's just, and I've done this for a long time, but I just still get so jazzed when I get asked to do this stuff, whether it's a commercial or it's characters for a game or whatever. Even doing voicemail, I get really jazzed doing it. I love it. And one of the things that's really funny is, like, when a game comes out and I know they're previewing it and stuff, I'll sometimes go to GameStop or something like that, and just look to see how people are interacting with the product on the shelf, or whether they're watching it. Or I was at GDC, and if people go to my Facebook page, I'm JS Gilbert on Facebook. I don't think there's anybody else that's a JS Gilbert on Facebook. And if you're not sure it's me, on the top of the page, it's a picture of me with the NOS girls. So that's the energy drink NOS energy drink. I'm coming out of one of the halls for GDC, which is the Game Developers Conference. They have it in San Francisco every year. And I cross the street, and there's this NOS booth, and they've got 2 computers up, and they've got the new Twisted Metal for PS3 on it. And so there's a guy there that hanging out, and he says to the person running the booth, he says, that guy right there? He's the voice of Sweet Tooth. And he comes up to me and he says, "Are you really?" And I mean, they made a whole big deal over who I was, and they asked me to get on the mic and to talk to people. And he had a couple of things that he'd been given for a promotion, a rubber mask, a Sweet Tooth mask, which I have hanging up in my studio, and it was just so cool, and just really feeling that appreciation and people just liking the work that you do. It is the closest thing I will get to being, a celebrity. So I guess.
Well, I will say I really wish I had seen you at the Consumer Electronics Show, because they were demoing the game there, and I was having a lot of fun with it. But I was the smartest child possible, and I picked the helicopter, which is apparently the worst or the hardest vehicle to
Yeah, yeah.
control. So everybody was laughing at me. I'm not that bad
And
at video games.
and Jaffe, they had a release party in San Francisco for the game, and it was just, they brought me on stage, and I got the little wristband and got to hang out with the people from G4 and all that kind of stuff. And it was, again, like, people were coming up and asking to take their picture with me. So this is very new for me, because I did games for years and years and years. I have to say, in the early days of doing the games, what was really cool was there were usually some people around watching me perform, because voice and games came a little bit later, and it was kind of cool to see the actors. But I remember one day when I went down to record something, and I can't remember where it was. But I asked, I said, "Oh, there's nobody here today to watch," and he said, "Oh, they're up on the third floor. We'll go there when you're done." And when I got done and we went up to the third floor, guess what? That's the CG department. So everybody was a lot more interested in how they could put, motion on the characters and put fur on them and make them look realistic. So it wasn't so cool being the voice anymore, and it just kind of nice, getting that appreciation again. And I also have to say, if people don't know, but voice acting has changed a lot. Um, a lot of the work that we do as for games, we actually do still get to go out to studios, but there's only a few producers out there now that have us do this stuff ensemble. And ensemble just means where the actors are all together and performing at the same time. Otherwise, we're just doing it, ourselves. And even then, more and more of this work I'm doing from my home studio. I don't see people in the course of a day. I don't get to hang out with the actors. We do our auditions from home. So it's changed a lot. It's this working from inside a vacuum kind of thing. So again, when you get to go out and somebody knows you from work that you've done, or you see somebody appreciating the work that you've done, it's just an incredibly uplifting feeling.
Well, now I have to wonder because, we're obviously very rooted in not just video games, but also anime. And there's like a ton of anime conventions. Would you ever be interested in going to one of those, or have you?
Um, I actually, because I am kind of a big old nerd. I mean, I used to go to Comic Cons, and I used to go. I used to go to CES years ago when I was quote unquote a booth babe. And same thing with E3. Well, an actor is an actor, and that's part of what we do. So, people who used to go to these things, I was the guy, with the little headset on in the booth that was trying to get you to come and take a seat and watch the presentation or whatever it was. So it was always kind of fun for me. And I really kind of wish I've been watching, or I was watching the Comic Con in San Diego on G4, and I really was wishing I had gone. I'm definitely going to go next year, that's for sure. But I haven't had anybody actually ask me to go and be part of a panel or sit in the booth and sign autographs or anything like that. I know some other people who do, and I guess that would be okay. Although, quite frankly, if I were going to sign autographs, I'd rather do it for free. That's kind of like paying it back, so
Mhm.
to speak. A lot of times, I'll uh, in situations like maybe somebody's trying to raise funds for something or whatever, and they want me to do either to record a commercial or to do something in a voice to help them, as a PSA or to raise money or whatever it might be. I donated myself reading some lines in character, whatever character they wanted, for a charity not that long ago. It was pretty cool. Because I also do voices for licensed characters that people don't know about. You know Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
I do indeed.
I'm the licensed voice for Hermie. But Santa, Santa, oh, I want to
Oh,
be a dentist.
that is so cute. There's so much like memories. They're just like flooding my brain right now.
Well, sadly, the person who came up with that voice originally passed away, but there's still a lot of demand for it. A lot of my career actually has been doing voice matching or sound alike work, and I've done it for a number of projects that I can't talk about because if for example, there is a popular animation on television, and say one of the actors is sick or got into an accident or whatever, and wasn't available for 4 or 5 or 6 episodes, and they brought in a sound alike, they don't want people to know that it's not the original actor. They don't want people to know that it's a sound alike. But
Well,
if
that makes
you
sense.
if you listen closely to some of these episodic pieces from the mid 80s to current, you will occasionally hear enough of a variance in a voice from one episode to another to make you scratch your head and say, I wonder. And that could have been me. So, um, anyway, it's not something I do much of anymore because it's centered in Los Angeles, and I tend to want to spend more of my time these days in San Francisco, um, rather than traveling back and forth a lot. But
Well,
I still get to do a bit of it.
well, concerning projects that you can talk about, is there anything that you can promote that recently came out that has your voice in it, or anything that you're working on that you'd like the listeners to know about?
Well, and there's things all the time. You know, I'm the spokesperson for Phillips 66 gasoline, yay, hey, and also Clorox bathroom products, which I'm very proud of that work as well. As far as the game stuff, there's things that are coming out all the time, and again, I you know go out there and I would suggest people listen to 91.8 and see what you've got to say about games and your thoughts and go to the other game sites and things like that too. I'm just very very lucky and very very happy that I get to do what I'm doing and have been able to do it this long. And that people aren't just like looking at me as yesterday's old cheese, and still respect the work that I do and can do. So if folks are listening or reading your blog and they want to know more about me or follow me on Twitter, I'm happy to do that. Facebook is starting to get a little crowded, so maybe not there, but Twitter for sure. And on Twitter, I'm Gilbertism, Gilbertism is what I go by. And on Facebook, I'm actually my pages are public, so you can read what I'm writing and talking about. You can subscribe, but then I also have a page on Facebook that you can like, which is called Gilbertarian, 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 because Gilbertism was taken. I don't know why, but so yeah, and then you go to that page and hit the like, and I talk about voiceover, I talk about writing, I talk about all kinds of crazy things. My home page is jsgilbert.com, and again, I have a blog there. I've got examples of some of the work that I do. I have a YouTube channel. JS Gilbert is my YouTube channel, and I put up. Usually, we'll put not so much walkthroughs, but cut scenes, things of that nature up. Um, Now I've got one of the things that I'm doing now is called "Things My Garden Gnome Says."
I can't imagine that as anything but hilarious, honestly.
And what you can find, there's two little installments right now on YouTube. Things my garden gnome says, but basically it is my garden gnome. He is a real garden gnome, and I believe he's been in this particular garden. I have not been at this particular garden that long, but he's probably been here 40 or 50 years. I kind of inherited him. Uh, and he is animated, and he just says things that a garden gnome might say. I'm not sure exactly what is going to happen with my particular garden gnome, but he may start visiting places and going out and doing more things, and reporting about the things he does. So um, there's that. And then also there's a little secret button on my website. If you go to the voiceover page and you hover over voiceover, you'll see a black bar underneath it. And if you click on that, it'll say Governator. And what you'll find is you'll find about 50 episodes of an audio program that I did called The Governator, where basically, I go in and I talk like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then I say things that he would maybe say, but that he wouldn't say. Um, so that's I have no idea what to do with them. They're just sitting there and taking up space, but they might make you laugh. Things like Arnold getting visited by Bullwinkle and Rocky, while he was the governor, who were trying to tell him how to run California, stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just I have a fun life, and I've always got room for friends, people who want advice that are trying to get into the business or any of that sort of stuff. I'm always happy to hear from folks, and I really appreciate you guys, extending this offer to me to come on your program, and it is a big honor for me to have people want to spend the time, not just talking to me, but um, the folks who are going to spend time listening to me. I don't know what I'm saying that's of any great import or value or anything, and I just think it's absolutely amazing that people want to listen to what I have to say.
Well, as I said, like we've really seen it in anime first, and it seems like it's like slowly leaking into other media where geekdom strives. But people will literally, follow and watch their favorite voice actors and buy material just based on them. That's why when for video games, they're kind of getting a little bit better at it. But when we're not allowed to know what the cast is until after the game is released, I feel like they're really losing out on promotion and sales from the voice actor or the talent.
Um, yeah, maybe so. That could be true. I don't know. There's so many people out there right now that are just doing really very good work in the gaming business in terms of dialogue production, the voice talent, and the people that are producing the voice talent. And I've got buddies out there that are doing the work. 2K Games is just incredible stuff that they're doing. And then the folks up in Washington who are doing Left 4 Dead, the people at Microsoft that with Halo and some of the other titles they've got are really incredible. The folks over at Lucas are just paying so much attention to making sure that they have really good quality dialogue work done. Telltale Games, these are for the most part relatively inexpensive downloadable games. You would be amazed at the concern and care that they have that the audio, the voiceover be as good as possible. And I also belong to an organization called GANG, which is the Game Audio Network Guild, and they give out awards every year to various people who work in the industry. They've just started giving out awards to voice talent, and we now have a coalition called the Gang Voice Actor Coalition, which I'm part of. And what we're trying to do is really work within everybody that's in the industry to try and make sure that game audio is on a level with the best films that are being made. Right now, I don't think it's anywhere near. I think there's a ton of room that it can grow. But if you look at where music and sound effects were just a few years ago in the gaming world, and you see where it is now, in some cases, games have better sound effects and music than blockbuster titles for movies. So I think we are going to see even better and better voice acting going on in games, and I just hope when that's happening that I'm still going to be part of it.
Well, that's really exciting to me as a gamer because the thing that sucks me into games is like how the characters act and how I can relate to them. And I feel like the voice actor is a big part of that.
Well, thanks. And I think also what's happening to a large extent is that they're starting to realize that voices don't need to be done by quote unquote gamers or people who work for the game company, but that they really do need to belong to people who know how to act, who can breathe life into the characters. And so you don't get this kind of sameness. And there are a lot of games out there that I can think of, I won't mention them, where the main character doesn't seem to vary much from one game to the other to the other. It's that young,
Yeah.
raspy, brooding voice, and I think that the gamer deserves to have more than that.
I do too, especially like not to be all feminazi on here, but especially when you're not just applying, you're not just marketing your games to men, you're marketing them to women, you're marketing them to children, you're marketing them to people like my mom.
Yeah,
It's not everyone can relate to the brooding, kind of muscly, sort of anti-hero.
yeah, exactly. And I'd like to think that women getting involved in the gaming industry has done a lot to get it to a point where, hey, it's not just about blowing up everything in sight, but it is about having some sort of a plot, and it's about having some sort of a depth, and it's about having a relationship between the characters and those sorts of things. So I think that probably more so than the boys or the men who have been playing the games, I think that women are demanding of that. And I'm really glad to see that the game developers aren't like creating this scenario where there's pink games for the girls and blue games for the boys, because that's really not, in my mind, what it's all about.
Hmm. I mean, a lot of games that I end up playing today are games that usually have really long and huge stories. Actually, you're in one of my favorite games of all times. It's an older one, but you're in Star Ocean: The Second Story, and
Is
that
that
is and that is literally my favorite game of all time. I have about 3 copies of it. One of them isn't opened.
that's funny? Wow. So when was Star Ocean? That was like in '97, I think.
If IMDb is to be believed, it says 1998, but
Okay, well, it could have been '98.
yes,
That's
but
funny.
it's a game that has like a lot of multiple characters. You can be either a guy or a girl. It's a game I found in middle school, I believe, and I just remember it because the story is so big. I think there's 86 different endings to that game,
Wow.
and for whatever reason that is my favorite of all time, and I think that kind of shows something. I think that games today are really taking story and characters more into consideration.
Well, yeah, there's a bunch of titles that I really like because they're older and yet people still seem to want to play them and respond to them. Obviously, Twisted Metal Black was one of those, and the fact that they packaged, I get, I'm not sure, was it every one of the Twisted Metal for PS3s came with a Twisted Metal Black, or was it just an initial? I'm not positive, but I know that a lot of people who bought Twisted Metal for PS3 got Twisted Metal Black for free with it, which is pretty cool. But that game, people have been playing for years and years, and I've gotten it's just kind of great. The other one that I get people talking about a lot is Soul Calibur 2.
Mm.
I played Astaroth, and what's funny about that is apparently they replaced me, so I'm the first person to do the voice of Astaroth. He doesn't appear prior to that, and they replaced me in the others. And nobody has reached out to me or anything like that. In fact, online they had a vote, and they all were saying they liked my Astaroth better. And I just don't kind of understand why they wouldn't why they wouldn't come to me and ask me to do the voice. It just kind of seems strange.
Well, I mean, nobody can really say, and I don't want to get into theories and all that jazz because I don't want to offend anybody. But I will say that that just kind of shows that, gamers, when they feel something is off, it sticks with them. They don't forget it.
Well, yeah, no, I appreciate it when people will say, uh, I especially when it's a game where there's like 20 or 30 characters they can play, and they say, I always play as that character. Like, I always play as Mundo. Mundo, my favorite character.
Oh, oh, I love it. But now, one of the things that I'm curious, is there anything else that you want the listeners to know about concerning any projects that you're working on, or is there any other places on the internet where they can stalk you?
Where they can stalk me.
In a nice way. Not in a mean way, just a nice way.
I got a tall fence out the backyard, but
And I
um,
heard dogs in the background at one point. I think he's got dogs.
she's tiny. She's like
Don't
22 pounds, but she's
don't tell them that.
if you go to my website, jsgilbert.com, you will see a picture of the office manager here at my studio. Her name is Fresca. She's a little terrier mutt, or we think she's a terrier mutt. We don't even know. And anyway, she lives in the office here most of the time. When I'm here, she's always here. And when I go in the booth, I actually have a professionally built booth here in the whole bit. So when I go in the booth, there's a little window in there, and she will actually sit outside about 5 feet away from the booth so she can see me through the window. It's so
Aw.
funny. Yeah, the little. But there's also a neighbor who got a dog a couple of years ago, a little Chihuahua. And so Fresca wants the Chihuahua to know that she is the boss and that she's in charge. So that was the barking you heard earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, now we know. But
Yeah,
since
so there's jsgilbert.com. I do have a site that's kind of in progress. It's called insanevoiceover.com.
I did surprisingly find that. That's a really cool layout, by the way.
Oh, thanks. It's just on some of the browsers, the things don't work, and I don't know. I got to play around with it. But yeah, I wanted to kind of have something that was a little bit darker and a little bit more comic booky. So that's going on. I'm auditioning for things all the time. What did I just read for? Walking Dead. So I'm auditioning for game stuff all the time. So hopefully, I'll keep doing games and again, I love when people contact me and it's not even just to say, oh, I loved your work or whatever, but sometimes people will contact me and say they didn't particularly like something I did. And, that's how we as actors learn and grow too. So
I think your Avast virus database has been updated.
yeah, anyway, I'd love to know who does the voice for that because I feel like I'm married to her. It pops up like twice a day. But that's how we grow and learn too. So I don't mind criticism as well. It's great. And, it would be kind of funny if like 20,000 people said, hey, we like the voice better in Twisted Metal Black than we do in Twisted Metal PS3. That might just say something to the producers and directors too. I'm kidding.
Well, some people might, you never know, but I will say, since we're nearing the end of this interview, it's time for us to ask if you'd be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition.
Oh, all right. I already have my clothes off.
Oh, okay, good. Then you're all ready. Basically, we ask if you'd be willing to do a radio bump for us or say a line for us.
Sure.
The trick of it, however, is that we do the takes live on air. So sometimes people mess up and they get to hear you mess up.
Okay.
All right, awesome. This should actually be pretty easy, but just in case it isn't, everybody gets to laugh at home.
Okay.
Anyway, we ask if you could say, hello, my name is, you insert your name. I do this. You can say characters you've been. You can say you're an actor. You can put whatever you want there. And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan. He's probably typing it in the background.
No.
No. No?
98.1 The Fan.
91.8 The Fan.
91.8 The Fan. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So whenever you're ready, you can let her rip.
Hello. Wait, hang on a second. Oh, boys and girls. Oh, boys and girls. My name is Sweet Tooth. I'm a clown. And you're tuned into 91.8. Oh.
That was pretty amazing.
Thanks.
I'm just gonna say I had, just in case, I had I muted my mic, but I have a habit of putting like a rag over my mouth just in case I'm gonna swallow or something, even though I have a pop filter. And I was like, wow, on my side, but you couldn't hear it. I wish
You're doing a lot of different ways. Doing a John Wayne voice. All right, Pilgrim. I'm dead, but I'm John Wayne. And you're tuned in to 91.8. You're traveling through another dimension. I'm Rod Serling, your host on this journey into the bizarre and yet to be discovered. And you're tuned into 91.8. Oh, now, boys and girls, you can't go anywhere today. Today is Salisbury Steak Day, and you're tuned into 91.8.
I feel like you just showed up about 200 or 300 voice actors.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. They might be a little upset with you, but we're fine with it.
Oh, and I can keep going.
Well, we might do that a
I
little.
can't get enough of your love, baby. I'm I'm a little bit of a singer, and you're tuned into 91.8, baby.
Well, before we get too distracted, is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Don't wear plaid with stripes. It's wrong. It's bad. Quit wearing the hat on the side of the head. It looks stupid.
That's good advice, actually. You should tell them to pull up their pants too. That
And
bothers
pull
me.
up the pants. Yeah, for Jiminy Pete's sake, pull up the pants, kids. Come on. Pull up the pants. Also, here's a little tip. If you ever want to get a job doing anything but being a barista, don't get a tattoo on your forehead.
That's a good idea. I should let my cousin know about that, but she already made that mistake.
That's it. You don't just get the voiceover guy here. You get the full broad spectrum of support and help.
Exactly. So if you need advice on how to wash your whites or, with your divorce or anything like that, you should add him on Facebook and bother him.
I would think so. I've got good laundry tips.
Well, thank you so much for this. This was a lot of fun, and you were a great guest.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, anything I can do, just let me know.
And for anybody out there that missed any of this interview, shame on you, but don't fret, it'll be up on the website within the next few days, so keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, everything you want and nothing you don't.